Hello, world. It's Bones. I'm back. Everyone say hi.
No.
Hello.
Hi, Bones.
Same figures as last time. No one's changed, although Apollo's gotten quieter for some reason.
I don't know why.
Um,
Legally blind.
so I want this one to be about problem players, and let's problem players is a wide definition. What do you guys think when you think of problem player?
Ooh.
Somebody tries to hog the spotlight.
What spotlight?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
Another is the kind of player who just it's one thing for your character to go off on like their own and do something, but there's a difference between that and just doing something that's completely counter to what everyone else is doing just because.
hmm
That to me is a big problem thing.
Apollo, do you have any other definition, or is that about the same as you?
Yeah, no. Someone who says they have a plan and then does something and it goes wrong and then admits, "Oh, I didn't have a plan."
We're not supposed to have the story yet. We're not supposed to go into that, Apollo. You're jumping
Yeah,
ahead.
that's the story that we're gonna be
That's just a
telling.
good definition. We'll get to that later.
There is a type of problem player that we will be discussing, and I'm gonna. The one that you guys I think missed was that player.
Yeah,
When we're
that
talking
guy.
about problem players, I should specify this one's going to lean very heavily on D&D problem players and the type that come in on those. You have that guy, and the best way I can put as that guy, it's just that guy. Like you can't really describe it. You'll know him when you meet him.
Yeah, you'll just have a feeling of
Oh God,
no,
this is the worst player I've ever met.
and then you'll find someone else who's worse.
Yeah. Um. We also have rules lawyers. Those exist, and that's.
Which
I feel
they're
like
not
that's
necessarily
terms.
bad.
No, I feel like that term's changed. Uh, some call them rules traditionalist versus rules lawyer. I think an old Puffin Force video actually took it very well until he got rid of it. There's a difference between someone who thinks that the rules just should be played to the T and it has more fun, but then there's those people who take the rules and try to like argue against them to get what they want on the table.
Yeah.
And those are the bad ones. The people who are like traditionalists who just think it's for fun, they're okay. I kind of lean toward them actually. I prefer to play with rules. I'll do my own homebrew, but anything fun needs to have rules and brackets around it.
Yeah.
Can anyone
Makes
think of
sense.
another type that we might be missing? Or
Ooh, metagamers.
metagamers? That's a big
Yeah.
one.
Mm.
Metagamers.
Ah.
Those are the type of people who they're using outside knowledge. Like, oh, I saw the DM working his book, and I saw a beholder. We're fighting a beholder. Those are those kind of people. The people who use outside knowledge or kind of like looking into other reasons that don't make sense on why that character is doing it.
hmm
Yeah.
They're acting entirely out of outside meta knowledge rather than what their character knows.
Yeah.
And like the session before, like, oh, you're gonna be fighting a death wraith, and then like, okay, we're gonna be continuing this session next week. Then the problem player would go online, look it up, and say like,
Yeah,
okay, I
look
have
up the
strategies.
stats, figure out the vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
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 Now
Where the
there is
DM
like
was just trying to be nice and warn the players ahead of time.
yeah, there is like a suspension of disbelief where we clearly see that we're fighting say a troll. Those aren't rare creatures. If your character's an adventurer or they know adventurers, they've heard things about trolls. You can justifiably say that your character knows
Yeah.
trolls'
Or like
weaknesses.
ghosts in holy water. That should be obvious. But
Yeah,
if you're fighting a demon for the first time, you shouldn't know what the weakness of a demon is.
no,
Not unless the class you play would have knowledge of it as part
Yeah.
of their training.
Hmm.
Yeah,
yeah,
or like their backstory, stuff like that. That's
Yeah,
acceptable. But when like someone from
like we're talking about a
like a
farmer who decides,
barbarian.
yeah, a barbarian wouldn't know how to know how
No, barbarian would just rage.
Yeah,
rage
and
and hit.
smack.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have experience with that.
you be quiet.
However,
very good
a
at it.
barbarian may know how like some animals, like what weaknesses animals have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A good example of this is actually how I play, or how I prefer blood hunters in my party. If someone's playing a blood hunter, great class made by Matt Mercer, it
Crazy.
is an idea of someone who like hunts undead, fae, and other monstrous beings, kind of like a witcher almost is how I see the class. And
Yeah, pretty much.
Same.
whenever that's brung up, it actually gives you advantage in tracking all those things. If your character is going to, like, in their backstory, right, I hunt undead for an entire living, and I fiendishly hunt ghouls and skeletons to a religious belief. If you do something like that, I'm gonna be like, you just automatically know things about them. Like, I'll just tell it to you straight because that's what your character would know.
Yeah, your character knows this kind of thing. This is what they do for a living.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's see some other players.
during this, we're going to be talking a lot about stories of the problem players we've had. Most of us have been in the same games together, so we'll all have different thoughts on how this happened. This is going to get progressively worse the longer we go.
Yes,
Oh,
it will.
definitely.
This is going to
We're
get
gonna laugh.
bad. First, I want to start off. We're going to keep privacy here. Let's start off with C. C was a mistake.
Oh,
yeah.
I was
So
yeah.
So
That's putting it
C
mildly.
was one of the players we had joined when I first switched over to 5E because we was looking for more people to jump in the game. I think at this point I had, what was it, 7 players in my
Something
campaign?
like that, yeah.
okay, let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Which
6 to 7.
Yeah, I didn't have a
Yes.
problem
Not bad.
playing with that many. It got a little out of hand just because everyone was so varied and combat was getting kind of scaled. Because if you've dealt combat in 5e, if you ever have those cases where some people play high, hardcore, and some people play on easy mode, it's really hard to balance it the more players you get. That's a scenario I had. But for clarity, C was the party's Goblin Rogue. Pretty generic setup, right? It was his first time playing D&D, right?
He was
Yeah.
no, he was fine
Yeah,
starting
and
off.
he was a
and
good
then-
player for good months. He was a great player and a good friend. I'm just thinking about all the stories. This was insane.
I know.
Yeah, it was-
I think the first one we should talk about was the fort.
Oh,
No,
absolutely.
no. We should start at
Wait,
the
ooh,
beginning.
no.
We should start at the beginning. Which one would
The
the?
guard climbing.
Yeah, I think we should start with the guard tower. This is a while back. You guys remember it better, so you go ahead.
Do you want to
Okay.
do it, Iron?
All right. We had just, and by we I mean half the party, because the other half was killed, survived an encounter with a kraken. Our ship
Yeah.
barely escaped. We were just trying not to, be dead. We had a job. We were trying to do the job. Wandering around. We came across a guild of adventurers in the woods. We kind of passed by them, didn't really do much with them. So, not much happened with them. But not far off, we saw some dead merchant. Went to a town, told people that we saw this dead merchant. They were like, huh, that's weird, because that venturing group that you saw was set to protect them. And they're fine. It's weird that the merchant's dead. We started a battle between that guild and the guards. While this is happening, our goblin rogue decided randomly to climb the guard tower. The guard captain was right in front of us, watching us as this happened. Confused as fuck as to why some random fucking goblin was climbing up the guard tower in the
And
middle of
for
the
reference,
daytime.
it was noted to the party that only the first floor of the guard tower was available to the public. The rest was like private sleeping quarters, equipment, storage, the jail sales.
Yeah, the sales.
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 Sorry, country accent comes out.
Yeehaw.
Please stop hawing. So, yeah, he wasn't supposed to be up there. put it mildly. And he just did it in front of the guard captain
Yeah.
for no
And we
reason.
had to convince the guard captain, like, oh, he went up there to see what was going on, see if we could help.
I think
We
my
had to
favorite.
persuade the guard captain
Yeah,
about
I
that.
think my favorite part is he goes up there and he wants to roll a perception check to see what's going on in the city, so he can like help the party get there quicker. He rolls a natural 1, and a bird poops in his eye.
Nah.
Yeah,
Like,
that was fun.
I was really
Yeah.
tempted to just roll percentile to see if he falls off.
You
You
should have made him.
should've.
I
Should have made him
should
roll a Constitution save.
have. I should have.
See if
Bird flu.
But this is when it started to go downhill. Let's move on to the next story, which is I think my favorite. So it was him, the monk of
Yeah.
the party,
That was me.
and who else was with you? Was it
Blade.
We don't say names.
we don't say
No
names. No
not
names.
saying names.
But they went in and they were actually doing a side quest, which was hunting treasure. They had these 4 random stones they kept finding, and these stones look like pebbles, but they were actually special because when put together, they make a compass. And it was pointing them to a previously island they had been, a kind of like snowy island that held a curse. And as they got there, following the compass, it led to a well. They broke open the well, which was outside the manor of the noble there, the third prince, and they kind of like snuck in, and they saw a like icy bridge that led to some kind of stones and some podium that held a mask.
You missed a couple things.
I'm summarizing it a little bit to keep it
Yeah.
simple.
I'll add on to this because I was there personally.
Yes.
We go down, and this is a ice bridge that we're on, that we land in. We're like in the middle of this massive cavern, basically. Our rogue decides to try to walk forward. I grab him by his collar, yank him back, and I said, "Isn't this kind of weird?" And I looked around, did an investigation check. Sure enough, he was about to set off a flamethrower trap on an ice bridge.
Yep.
Yeah.
Our rogue.
A rogue did not check for traps. Now,
Yeah.
keep in mind,
Traps are gay.
keep in mind, rogues forget sometimes. That's common. I mean, everyone forgets.
Yeah,
The
no,
amount of times he
I-
has forgotten to check for traps.
Yes.
Is
But
Um,
anyways,
yeah.
we continue down this pathway. There's no more traps. Then we see this massive door. We open the door. We're careful. We're still investigating traps. Couldn't find any. And inside this past this giant door was a single mask, a white mask that looked like a dragon. That is the only thing in this room that's on a podium. I'm like, okay, this is obviously something magical. I don't want to put it near my face or anything like that, so I was about to put it into my bag. Our
See.
rogue decides to yank it out of my hand, like, "Ooh, what's this?" and puts it near his face.
Yep.
Immediately, I try to yank it off. And sure enough, the mask gets sucked onto his face. It was permanently stuck onto him for the rest of the campaign.
So, for reference on what this magical item is, because the party never really figured it out, the individual
I
in
did.
question ended up leaving later. It was a modified version of the White Dragon mask from D&D's. I don't remember what book. It might be the first one with Tiamat.
I think
But
so.
the modification of this mask was you had to unlock the ability. They were like seals, like a normal artifact would, eventually discovering more about it, and it grows more powerful with you. It immediately had some perks to it, like he could understand Draconic and speak it. He had ice resistance, I believe, or cold resistance. But the negative downside to it is that this was a cursed mask. And this mass is what caused the island to be shrouded in constant ice and snow, as it had a history behind it. But basically, all the masks in my world was actually parts of original dragons that served Tiamat. And They all had a history to them. This dragon was a traitor. This dragon fell in love with a human. And by doing so, he betrayed them and was cursed. He became the mask, and any dragon who saw someone wearing this mask would instantly want to kill them.
Or with someone with dragon-like blood.
Yes. So any draconic sorcerer, which there was one in the party, which I didn't account for, would have to roll saving throws every time they saw his face, not to murder.
So we
Man.
literally had to keep his face covered.
Yes.
For the rest of the
Also,
campaign.
the amount of times in fights, Blade, goddammit, B, no names. Apollo got me started, goddammit.
I'm sorry.
Um,
Bleep it out.
bleep.
You think he edits these?
Yeah, I don't
I
edit.
don't know.
I don't edit. I'm too lazy. But the amount of times they would have to say in combat, I don't look that direction. I do not look that direction. I see a cloak of the rogue. I don't look over there. Nope, nope, nope. To not murder his own teammate in combat.
It was genuinely funny.
It was.
It was.
My
It
next
got really
one.
funny when we had a quest
Sorry.
where we went through this little dungeon, and at the end there was a adult black dragon, that was trying to kill him the entire time.
And because he was aggroed on him, the other party just kept to go poking. Just poke, 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 over and over.
Oh no, that's not even the best
Stab,
part.
stab.
Originally, we all had a plan because someone actually went in to scout
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome.
and said, "Yeah, that was you." And we had the plan like, okay, we're gonna give the dragon a bunch of gold. We're going to look at something that's in here that's very valuable, and then we were gonna head out.
Yes.
Yep, that was the plan.
That way we could
And
avoid
that
combat,
plan was
and it would've
immediately
worked.
thrown away as the rogue decided to sneak toward the
Sneak in.
dragon.
Yeah.
Now you think, oh, rogue sneaking, that's normal.
However, dragons got true sight.
Yep.
It's the surefire way of you go into someone's room, they always know you're there, and you're giving them the middle finger thinking you're hidden, and they look at you like, really?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a very accurate summary of what happened, actually.
And now keep
Yeah.
in mind, this player is still good at this point. This is when it starts to go downhill. The fort.
Oh.
I'm gonna say this story. So,
Go,
our
please
good
go
friend
ahead.
Iron here was also in the campaign. He was a
Yep.
noble. And
Eos
he,
Argwild at
and-
your service.
as Eos came back to his beloved country, his nation, he was tasked by his father to clear out some bandits that had recently moved into their territory, who had built a fashionable wooden fort. Now, we were having some issues with this player at the time, but at this moment he decided to step up as a player and surprise the party by coming up with a plan. Beyond genius, mind you. It's a wooden fort. Let's burn it. Pretty simple and great plan, right?
Yeah, no, it was a good plan.
Yeah.
We all agreed to it.
Yes. And they said, you are the stealthy one. This is your plan. You take the lead. Nightfall begins to shroud as they wait for the perfect moment. The goblin sneaks in, almost gets caught, but catches himself. Slithers in, climbing up on top of the wooden parapet. Right there, he sees a guard, kind of just watching for it. Only one guard on rotation, currently looking out. And with his plan to set the fort on fire, he decides to assassinate the guard when he could already set it on fire. He just goes for an assassination. Natural 3, misses his feet and alerts the guard, who then sounds a horn. Now, at this moment, you would assume this player, in his infinite knowledge, to still continue the plan, as it is only one action to set the fort on fire. He is currently available with a torch. He does not do so, and instead starts a battle. And hides. The rest of the party, being outside, hears this, gets tired of it, and Eos just firebolts the wooden barricade.
Yeah.
Just And what ensues is a battle while the fort is on fire inside of it.
Yeah, I almost died.
You did. It was a very fun
Very
combat,
toasty.
though, objectively.
Oh, no,
It,
it
it
was
was
fun.
it was a fun combat. Everyone had to use their skills. They were fighting a warlord who had health regeneration, and it was just brawl, brawl. The party got split up into like 3 different sections, fighting different groups. It was fun combat.
Whack,
And
whack.
no, that's how some D&D sessions go. We'll give him credit here. Like maybe he was having a bad night, and it just continued to downfall over more sessions. The turning point. The turning point. Eos. My good friend Diane, please, as this affected your character the most.
All right. So, my character, Eos Arguild, was a noble in my country. His older brother was originally the heir. He died. My character became the new heir. So, we kind of used my manor as a base. You had a, time skip, downtime, yada yada yada. All of us did different things.
A side note I'd like to make. Eos here, and actually the monk also in the party, Throngelon, Apollo,
Yep.
they had actually won a tournament and became even more powerful nobles in the land as they were both given islands off newly acquired territory. So 2 of these characters were invested very heavily in this country, mind you, who were nobles
Yes.
of this land.
Yes.
Sorry to
Throngelon, or
interrupt.
Throngelon, as we call Thorn instead, because no one could pronounce his name, was a baron, and I was a duke in charge of him, with a pretty large territory, 4 counties, pretty decent size, not too far off from kind of being one of the more powerful dukes. I was definitely in the middle class, so I was a fairly well-known name. All of us had our own downtime. All of a sudden, my character, I get called into a call between Bones here and C, saying that I was needed, which sometimes happens. They need another character for downtime to do something. The scene was set. I was at my desk in the morning doing some paperwork for the operations of the duchy, the manor, taxes, things like that. C comes in. Our little goblin friend. I don't even remember the name anymore.
Drool.
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 It was Drool, but everyone called him
Called him
Drool.
Drool by this point. Everyone was calling him Drool for obvious reasons.
And I don't
Walks
think
in.
he ever caught on.
No, he did.
Yeah,
Oh, he
He
did?
corrected
he
us
did.
all the time.
Yeah.
Oh.
He
I just ignored him
he
after
walked
that.
into my office and said he needed to talk to me about something. He did a job. He's a rogue. I probably stole something. And he said, I stole quite a bit of coin, and well, I stored it here. Now, mind you, while doing paperwork, I was also looking at a newspaper. The royal treasury of my nation had recently been robbed of hundreds of thousands of platinum. I start to put 2 and 2 together, and he leads me into the closet of my own office, slides some things over, and pulls out a hidden little lockbox. And inside is, if I remember correctly, 100,000 platinum
Yep, in bars.
in bars in my office closet.
Literally, it's like he stole his wallet and gave him his wallet as a present.
Which, okay. And he said, I'll share it with you because you need to help develop that island. Just hush hush. Now, being a noble of my country, my morals have kind of slipped over time because I know sometimes you have to make deals with the devil in order to keep everything running properly. This was a step too far. So I said, okay.
Absolutely.
Immediately sent a message to the local guards to send up to the royal guards about this. A couple days later, we're all having breakfast in the dining room, the dining hall of the manor. And the royal guard steps in and ends up apprehending Zrul after he unsuccessfully jumps out the window to escape.
And
He
then
doesn't go far.
unsuccessfully hides in a tree.
Yeah, he doesn't get very far. He gets about 150 feet away, hides, and gets caught. It's intelligence.
And at this point, for the sake of brevity, he is NPC'd due to his actions. They give Eos here a reward for his dedication and loyalty to the country, which is actually part of what Drool had taken from his share of stolen goods.
Yeah,
And they take the rest. I think it was like 50,000.
Yeah, I got 50,000 platinum.
And a massive amount of reputation bonus with the country.
Because he found the dude who robbed the royal treasury and apprehended him.
Yes.
You mind
And
if I
he
add
very
something to this?
go ahead, add something.
Originally, whenever we did downtime, I was afraid, since he was a rogue, that he was going to do something stupid. So for the first downtime, I literally spent a year
watching him.
in a wizard's
Nothing
tower,
happened.
Where
No, he actually did very good in that year.
Yes, and then the next one, this happens.
Yeah, I'm away in a different plane of existence, and then I come back. Hey, where's the goblin? Oh, he's gone. What do you mean gone? Did he die? Oh no, he robbed the bank.
He wishes.
He wishes. Which, side note, which was later discovered, another member of that party that helped rob the bank with the goblin assisted, C, had helped and assisted someone who tried to assassinate the Elven Emperor. He made very well friends with many terrorists of the country.
Yeah.
But at this point is the end of C, because we've talked a lot about his bad points. He later on still had a few more, but they weren't major like this. I think we should move on to a more fun.
Yeah,
character.
after that it just became he didn't pay attention to how
Anything.
certain things worked, and then just the campaign in general.
Got mad, and then we kind of fell apart.
Someone we need to talk about, which our friend Apollo here doesn't have much. He's only heard the stories. D.
Oh.
We have to talk about D, right? We have
Yes,
to.
Yes.
I've heard
We-
some stories. I don't know
This
all of
is
them.
this is the closest we have to a that guy. He is not that guy, but he got really close to being that guy.
He's like one evolution away from becoming that guy.
This is one of the characters he introduced. I don't really know the order of like when we started to notice that, but one of the characters he introduced when I was still a player and not a GM, I was actually playing a character in a different system of Genesis, and I was Gellion.
See the Genesis video.
Yeah, see the Genesis video. Hey, it's the last Let's Talk. But I was playing a kind of like warlock, which was using divine magic, because there was no difference. Actually, it was just whatever you worshipped. He had actually also made a paladin-like character, who, and I quote, was the son of the gods and believed and worshipped every god. Yes, I know.
Heard right.
Yes,
Every
And-
god.
every god, and in common tropes, gods hate other gods, but somehow he was liked by all the gods.
When in reality, he should have been hated by all the gods.
Yes. And at one point, we were in the 9 hells doing something for my character. And I had a little imp that followed me around who was like my messenger between my master and me. He sees my imp, hates it, and murders it for it being an imp. I turn to the GM and I'm like, I'm going to stab him. He's like, well, you know your imp would come back in like 30 minutes because it's in the 9 hells. They can't really die. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to stab him. And I proceeded to stab him with my spear.
Oh yeah.
Anyone else have some amazing stories of D? I know it's just really me, Fluff, and Iron here who know about him.
Dance. Forget about that one.
No, I remember that one. I kind of just wanted you to do a story too, so I'm not the only one talking. I have a lot to talk about.
One.
Yeah, go ahead, Fluff.
overpowered child.
Ah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So, for reference, eventually he was DMing something, which was a conversion of 3.5, something he wrote back when that was a thing, to 5th edition into Genesis. So not only is there multiple conversions, which can make conversions a little messy, but just describe this. This needs to be said.
So when we first uh discovered, which I will just be calling OP Child, uh OP Child was at first we literally thought it was some random fucking kid who got lost. And we were like, let's be the good guys. Let's take this little guy back to town, give him a meal, leave him there, or drop him off at an orphanage. Typical, you know, neutral / good guy things to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, typical not asshole things to do.
Yeah.
Bones.
Sorry, what? You cut
No, I didn't cut out.
out? But this child ended up becoming a major plot point for the entire campaign, as this was, and I quote, chugga chugga chugga, choo choo, chugga chugga chugga, choo choo, we're on the rails, we're on the rails,
Bing,
as we cannot get
bing,
rid of this child, as he is a pivotal plot point. He is actually a god. I kid you not, he is a god.
and not just a god. Apparently, he is the god.
The god. Yes, that is right. The god has descended as child.
And apparently, instead of having it develop like a child would, it's just omnipotence.
Yeah.
For those who don't know what omnipotence is, they know everything.
Mm-hmm. Now, this campaign has very many things. For one, I died in it 7 times.
Yes.
Yeah, you did.
There were scenarios I should not have died. That was just him screwing me. One of my favorite stories is I actually, as the last character, made a really fun mounted combat character who was a mercenary with 2 swords and a mount. You see, I was the tank, and my mount was the damage. He got so sick and tired of my mount dealing damage, he took my mount away from me and
Yeah.
said, these trees are too thick. Your mount cannot go through. These doors are too thick. Your mount cannot go through. Oh, look, a giant demon just busted through the wall. Well, you just still don't have your mount. Well, what do you mean I don't have my mount? It's right there. It's like, well, he's not coming. I'm like, okay. Guess I'm tank.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, the OP child was a pivotal plot point that was forced upon us. We didn't really get to put him in an orphanage. He kind of was adopted by an NPC that was close to the party, and we constantly had interactions with him that were forced. And he did some weird OP things with magic, like, insta kill a boss at one point, summon items out of thin air, change history.
Literally challenge other gods to fights and drag us into it.
Yeah.
And by that I mean we would literally get dragged into literal religious wars almost.
I wouldn't go that far, but
Almost religious wars.
another great thing he did. Let's talk about when he started being a player in mine. This is when he became that guy.
Yes,
First,
this is when.
this is when it was a problem. First session, parties introduced tavern, normal setup in the town, doing a job for the chief. Very normal plotline. Sneaks into the chief's house, takes some stuff, also makes a fake identity. I'm like, okay, he's gonna go for a roguish style. I can back that. Next session, hey, how do I learn verse magic, which is bardic magic? I'm like, you really can't do that. He's trying at this point to do every class. He wants to be a druid, he wants to be a bard, he wants to be a wizard, he wants to be a rogue, he wants to be a warrior, he wants to be an archer, he wants to do all of it.
And for those, if you want to revert back, if those who want to know how to do all that, go back to the previous Let's Talk. You'll fully
Because, fun
understand.
fact, it's technically not possible in that system.
Yes. It's not like 5th edition where you can do that. You'll just suck at everything. This
Yeah.
you just can't do it.
Now, as the sessions go through, they eventually make it to a major city, and this is the pivotal plot point from when he leaves as a player. Because the rest of the party, I don't believe, are okay with this. You guys had gotten a boat ride across a river to take you down to the city to do a quest there.
Yeah, it was
He
literally going to
asks,
shave like a week
yeah,
off our
he
journey.
asks out of character, why don't we just kill the old man and take his boat?
Because we're not terrible people.
Yeah, but he's like, we get a free boat.
Do you know how to drive a boat?
He's like, we have to know how to drive?
Yes.
Yes, that's how boats work.
That's how boats work.
Do you know how to
Not-
use
not-
boat? No? Okay. Then
Not
no.
only that, we kind of have it as a rule that if you don't say out of character before you say something, it's usually in character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he kind of said that out loud.
Which was great. At that moment, he got pissed at me as a GM, said, I'm not really a good GM, and left. One more one I want to talk about, which is actually, I believe, a little bit after, because he did stay for a few more. Dancing on the sand. This was great. So in this system, you get a certain number of blue die, which can add to your roll. Basically, extra good rolls, because it uses symbols. He, not knowing much about verse magic, and not being much of a dancer, he uses his instrument quite often, said, I want to perform my magic through dance, which is possible, but I'm like, okay, you're not really well versed in dancing. He's like, but anyone can dance, and I'm like, not to the extreme where you control the mana and Ethereum in the air using your body. So he starts complaining about this. And then I'm like, you're also in dunes of sand. You're trying to be extremely quiet as not to wake up a giant snake. And you're also trying to fucking keep ahead of the party. Like, he had so many things against him. And I'm like, why are you arguing with me?
The fact that
Just
you're allowed
take
to do
one
the
step
role.
back. Yeah,
Be
you should be
nice.
happy you're allowed to do this. But that was D. He was a problem player. Good person, but problem player.
Burnt down buildings in disguise. And then complained when his disguise was pretty crap, when it was you disguised yourself as a slightly older gnome or
Yeah,
something
also,
like
session
that.
3, he tried to get a magical item that constantly let him use illusions permanently
Yeah.
without magic.
Just because.
Just because he also wanted to, at one point, have identities, like 100 of them, so he could just always make up fake identities wherever he was.
Which, cool
I
idea.
did not
For
know
an
that.
endgame character.
Yeah, not a session 3 character. Now,
Yeah, this. Boy.
we're talking about D. I'm going to say the worst player we all have ever come across.
B.
Everyone but Apollo knows who A is.
Oh.
Oh.
I got another one.
You got another story of him.
No. This refers back. This is gonna refer back to a story that we're all gonna know of. I got another one in my pocket.
Oh!
Oh,
Go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead, Fluff. You haven't talked much. Please. Please.
So I still play with A. He's gotten better since then, but remember, this is all shit that happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So back then, this is when we were playing with our friend S's game. This is back, like what? First ever campaign, second ever campaign we did?
Yeah, this is first real campaign, not just
First,
random, like,
yeah,
bullshit
first
sessions.
real campaign, and I think this, if I had to put a year on this, wasn't this like 2017?
God,
I
maybe. It
think
was a
so.
long
Yeah,
ass
it was, I was like in high school. I was a baby.
Yeah,
So-
I had just graduated, I think.
Now, to let you guys know, this was back. Well, the campaign we are referring to is the Star Wars FFG. Good system. It's very open for you to either stick to canon stories make a side part of the canon story, or just make your whole universe in general with elements of canonness.
Yeah,
Now,
good system.
Yeah.
So this refers to near the end of the campaign. Since it was our first ever real campaign, we somewhat stuck to canon, but changing it a little bit, aka the main characters Luke, Han, Leia, and Chewie they all died on the Battle of what was it, Hoth?
Off, yeah.
Yes.
Up until then, pretty much everything was mostly canon, except for
Yeah.
like little tiny odds and ends here.
Yeah. As far as like story, like as far as the movie goes, as far as like what happens from the beginning up till that point is all canon stuff that happened in the movie. From that point forward, it was all like, say that the canon stuff is Universe A, we're Universe J.
Yeah. Basically, those three die, and it alters the course of how the movies would go, and it puts our party in the front line.
We basically become the new heads, quote unquote. We're just very good at what we do.
But the scene he's specifically talking about is when we actually hit the final boss, when we are meeting Darth Vader.
This is the actual Battle of the Death Star.
Yes, Darth Vader just turned against Palpatine. He found out that Luke and Leia were his children, that he was lied to, and he finally decided. And he finally decided, I'm killing the Emperor. I'm taking over it, and I'm trying to put it the way I want it now.
You know, he actually grows a pair and puts his foot down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finally. It only took him 20 years.
Yeah. So the battle is going on as the battle goes on. And we know for a fact that they had bought this item, a thermal detonator. Anybody who knows what a thermal detonator is and what they do, you know they are pretty dangerous. Against Darth Vader, it put a good dent in him. It doesn't kill him outright, but it puts a good dent in him. You know, turning
about
the
half
tide
his
in
hit
our
points.
favor. About half his hit points to about a third of his hit points.
I think it's about a third, yeah. Because we got him via crits, not damage.
Crits is what actually saved us, because I actually
We're
looked at
getting
the
a
stats
little
that
off
Yeah.
here, because what happened was, and the key point of this, is that A pulled out a thermal detonator and said, I'm going to use this on Darth Vader. The GM at this point goes, wait, you have a thermal detonator? Didn't you use it back in so-and-so session? He's like, yeah, I bought 2. He never bought 2.
No, he did.
He did?
He's useful.
he just didn't mark it down that he had used one already beforehand.
Yeah, we used one as a trap earlier.
Yeah.
On Kashyyyk.
We were fighting. Was it a Rancor or was it?
It was the Tarantatek.
Tarantatek. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But
for those who are wondering what that is just a Sith-aligned Rancor.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
But he ends up using this thermal detonator, which he should not have had, on the boss, and proceeds to have that go on for, what was it? Like, when did we find out? Months later?
Yeah.
It was like about a month to almost a month and a half later.
Yeah, month and a half later, we realized, wait, he just didn't mark it down.
There we go.
Yeah. He just never took it out of his inventory when he had previously used it.
Mm-hmm. Although,
at first we were kind of happy. Then later when we found out, we're like, that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, he should have had a lot more fighting.
Because it kind of just ruined the first boss fight. Final boss fight, yeah.
Yeah, the first final boss.
Yeah, the first campaign final boss, sorry.
Now, keep in mind, at this point, we were the D&D equivalent of like 15th level characters.
Mm-hmm.
We were endgame, really powerful. There was not really much that was going to be able to be genuine threat.
That's a 9th level fireball right there.
Pretty much, yeah. That's actually a very good way of putting it. 9th level fireball.
Yep. Now, there's a worse story for this character, and this is when it gets really crazy. After their first campaign, we moved on to a second campaign, and some people wanted to do legacy characters, which is children, descendants of the first campaign characters. I think almost everyone did one, right?
Everyone did.
Yeah.
I definitely did one.
Yeah, I think everyone did. He did one too, except he did something very special. This character had a very unique tendency to whine and complain out of session when stuff does not go his way. He cried and cried and cried until our GM gave him a little extra buff at start. You know, just an item, right? Just a small little item to help out start. That's not bad.
No.
Especially to make the player who plays a little worse on par with everyone else. The problem is when you give him the endgame item he had from last campaign,
which is very fucking powerful.
which can, insta-kill small enemies at this level.
With
Or
casual ease.
Yes. Or if they're very lucky, since it's very high in the crit, pretty much one shot a boss.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he got this at session 2.
When he very specifically stated to everybody,
no one is getting anything from the last campaign.
Yeah,
Yes.
You're not getting anything from your previous character. You are a fresh character. You have nothing. You are a normal person in the world, essentially.
Mm-hmm. But
everyone immediately was pissed off by this.
Yes, this is when I think everyone started to be like, we're done with this shit. We're just done. Because,
this is,
go ahead.
Looking back, this is when we should have stopped. Like,
yes, just we didn't for a while because they were our friends, but we should have seen this coming as there was a previous point that kind of showed the whining. We did a mini campaign between campaign 1 and 2 in Star Wars, and it was a Sith campaign based in the Old Republic, where one player was the master and the rest were acolytes and apprentices.
Yeah, acolytes and apprentices.
Yeah, and the end goal, and the GM said this before anyone even picked master, was everyone is going to try to kill the master and take their place. The master will earn less XP than everyone else. But they start off at a higher XP amount.
Basically, it was you could either be a level 1 character, a level 5 character, or a level 15 character.
Yeah. Now, A took the level 15, and no one had a problem with this, because that means everyone was aiming for A. And I think me and Iron here had the most investment. I want to talk about this in detail. So in this campaign, I really went to an extreme, because I had never really played a Force character, and I finally got to. But I also went super into the upgrade system for this game. And I was making OP armor. I was making multiple lightsabers. I could do cool things, and I was dual wielding them. And the big thing is there was a companion in the party. I believe that was actually you, Fluff, wasn't it?
Yes. So
the robot.
So yeah, we were either gonna pick between level 1, level 5, or level 15. Whoever decided to choose the master. The only thing is, I decided I didn't want to play a Force user again because I was already playing a Force user for the main part of that campaign. So I was like, how's about I play, a Sith droid who's kind of like a training droid?
Yeah.
Yeah, which was a cool idea because it didn't force him to be a part of the chaos.
Yeah. But my thing, as part of this, pretty much everybody agreed that by default, my loyalty is to the master. I'm his bot.
The big thing is, I was talking during some downtime, and I said, "Hey, do you mind if I upgrade the robot and try to make his stats better?" The A here in question said yes, without hesitation. He did not suspect me doing anything evil. I take the droid to my room, show him proof that I can work on him, and I reprogram him to serve me.
Yep. Leading up to that, since he had gotten approval from my master, my protocols were saying, all right, do as the master demanded, and the master demanded I get upgraded. So as part of that, my protocols allowed him to fully access my systems without prejudice.
And I wrote a subroutine in the robot that basically was an activation word, which switched him to a different mode where it served only my character. And then I upgraded him to just be a little bit more operational, and I left it there. Few sessions go by, and I didn't really want to spring the trap, but it was the perfect time. I walk into the room pull out my sabers, the droid's there, and A tells the droid to dispatch me. I say the word, A is surprised when the droid turns around, pulls out his sabers, and begins walking forward with me.
Now, just let you know, the reason why I have sabers is because since I am a training droid, we finagled the system a little bit so that way I used a Jedi fighting stance and I had lightsaber as a career skill.
Mhm.
That's how we made it work. But please
Now,
continue.
as the fight continues, it starts looking really bad for A. Because not only did I build weapons that counter him, but I also built good armor that protected me. I didn't build the best I wanted, sadly. And I also reprogrammed another player to assist me. At this moment, Iron's character catches something is on, bursts through the door, and now it's whoever kills the master first. So the droid's just kind of keeping A occupied, and Iron's character and mine are fighting each other, trying to be the last one to stab him and take his place.
Now, one thing to keep in mind. A designed his character to essentially be a sniper who could throw a building at you from 1.5 miles away.
He is
Which is
also a
great
hut,
idea.
so he cannot run.
Yeah, he had a great concept for a character. He just forgot the fact that, what if I can't keep people away from me? Because of this, it was pretty easy to get him down to no health.
Yes. And I believe you are actually the one who finished him
I
close to
was.
the end. And it wasn't like, oh, he's down. No, we made sure, because at that moment you're like, he looks dead, right? The GM's like, yes. I'm gonna make sure, and you stab him with your lightsaber.
Yeah,
Like twice, just to be sure.
yeah, double tap.
At that
One
moment,
shot,
I
really.
realized I fucked up. My plan got out of hitch, but I see you're hurt, and I was debating about going on and continuing the fight. But as he dies, A wants to say one final thing, and he says an activation word, and we all hear the ship is about to blow up. My
And now,
character gets. Go ahead.
we didn't necessarily have a problem with that.
No, we didn't.
Because that's a petty thing that a Sith would do.
It is, but we also later learned that this was completely made up on the spot.
And the GM let him do this, which, again, I'm fine with stuff like that happening.
Yeah, it
Still
helps the
just-
story.
It did help the story, so again, we weren't too mad. It was a fun
Mhm.
thing to add in that added tension.
What
This adds to a problem, though.
it does, because what later happens is this starts to show the whining and complaining, because we all eventually find out as we save the ship. I was able to stop the detonation. We go back, look for the master's body. He's not there. And we find a hole cut into the bottom of the ship. His character did not die, even though we killed him mechanically and double stabbed him just to be sure, because he whined and complained so much through text that the GM's like, you live, you snuck away.
Yeah. Which, if we didn't double tap him, okay. Sure. Annoying, but sure. I can get it.
We made sure he was dead. This was like we cut off his head when he was down.
That was literally the only thing we did not do.
Yeah, basically. And this giant slug slithers away unfazed, basically.
Keep in mind, it's not easy to cut a hole through a ship.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to do that.
This is also when the Sith campaign ends, as everyone is pissed.
Yeah, everyone got pissed off that he let the character keep living when he was definitively, unequivocally
Dead.
He was gone. He was not in the campaign anymore. He was dead.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think this sums up just how bad A was. There's one more thing we have to talk about. This is not as bad as the others, but the fucking voice.
Oh,
The goblin voice.
This character in the
you already
Genesis
give me
system
a headache just
played
by
a
reminding me of
goblin. Played a goblin when we started to do fantasy. Now, the best way I can describe this voice, imagine the highest squealing, annoying baby, I'll say. not highest pitch. It's like it gives you a headache, but it's a baby. You understand. You don't want to. It's a baby. You kind of comprehend it. Now imagine that baby, tongue is a fork, and it's constantly scraping a plate. Now imagine if you're also in an empty cave, and that causes a reverb for it to constantly echo back. That was this voice.
It never
I,
stopped.
I think that's the best way to describe this voice. I wish I had a recording of it. I really do.
Man, I'm glad you don't, because I would
Because
be sad for your.
it got to the point where I think my Bleer's ears actually bled.
It genuinely, no jokes aside, was actually giving us headaches from it just him doing this voice.
It got to the point where like our GM at the time, who was like anyone who voice acted or did role playing, he heavily rewarded because it's a great thing to do, which we're okay with. Even he had to step in and say, "Stop the voice, or I'm kicking you. I cannot deal with this anymore." He had never done that in his entire
Especially
time
to
being
this
GM.
character.
Yes,
This
especially
player.
to this player. And he's like, "Do this one more time, you're gone." I think I think that's our worst problem player. I don't think I
No,
don't really.
we
You've
still have to discuss B.
Do we really want to talk about B?
We have to discuss.
We can go.
I have
we
a
can
plan.
Talk about why.
I have
Or
a
V.
plan.
I took off my kimono.
We're not talking about V. V
Nah.
is not that bad. We have to talk about B. We have to. There's two things.
Oh no, I'm talking
Three.
about
No,
his
no, no,
character.
no. We have to talk about three. We have to talk about three stories with B. First
Okay.
story. I'm going to do this one. B was a first time player in 5th edition. Same with C. They actually joined at the same time. A lot of our players
Well,
did.
he played Genesis with us, so he was
He
familiar with
did,
the
but it
concepts,
was a
but
different system.
different system.
Yeah.
So
So
it'd be understandable he may have a little harder time
I
messing.
I am going to be very, very, very generous here, and I'll just be straight. B is bad at math. And I quote, this is what he said one night. "What's a D6? It's the six-sided die, B. What's that look like?"
I'm gonna be honest. When he asked that, I physically started losing brain cells.
Now,
Me and Iron
th-
were dying
now
when he said
B,
that.
the story I want to talk about with B. This is the small one. This actually goes back to the Kraken attack we mentioned earlier ago with C. Um, B was actually one of the ones to survive. Uh, but one of the characters who died had a warlock pack. And that being, that primordial being that had that pack, lost his champion, his in. But he saw someone else who was strong that lived and who grappled at him, wanting him as his new slave. So I had dream sequences, few nights, where B was in this labyrinth of sea and abyss with these crystals growing, who's a reoccurring boss in my campaigns, known as Horus, the Crystallizer, a massive primordial being. Now, B makes a deal. The deal was very outright. "You will lose your limbs and shall be serve me forever, and in return I shall give you my power." He takes a level in Warlock because of this. But by doing so, he loses his arm and leg. He's like, "I didn't know this would happen," when I clearly outright said you will lose two limbs. Sorry, it wasn't an arm and leg. It was
No, he already was.
He lost his hand and his
yeah,
eye.
yeah. Hand and eye. He had already lost his leg. So at this point, he got so pissed about his reward, he NPC'd his character. He didn't want to play with that. He didn't want to. He was done. He's out. And came in
Can
with
I
a new
also-
character.
I want
Go
to
ahead.
add on to this as well.
Go ahead.
As he was leaving, he left behind. He gave me a set of magical dice that we got from the merchant, and he said, like, keep these and remember me. And as he leaves, And I take his dice, like, okay, I guess he wants me to keep it. So I use the dice, and I roll, and I get a magic weapon from it.
Mm-hmm.
B
Now,
sees this in his new character, and like, hey, can I see that knife? No, it's mine.
yeah, like he didn't want to see it. He wanted the weapon. He's
Oh,
like,
no, no,
it
no.
was my
wanted
dice.
my
You
weapon,
forgot a
like-
step. The fact that his new character wanted the dice.
Yeah, that's right. It was
Like-
before you rolled it.
Yeah,
Oh, right,
despite
that's what I meant.
not knowing the dice existed.
Yeah, he basically wanted
Here.
him to transfer his equipment back to his new character, which did not make any sense because they just met this
Like,
person.
I don't know you.
Now, that's kind of bad, problem player. Okay, what we need to talk about is how he got nude. This man, this person played a female character, which there's nothing wrong playing female characters.
No,
I've
I
done
played
a few.
female characters.
No,
I've,
not
Yeah.
at all.
yeah.
I've played a
Just
few.
do it right.
Yeah, just do
Don't-
it right. Don't
Don't
wear a kimono in battle in like a Japanese traditional themed character, and then at the beginning of every battle say, "I rip off my kimono and run in."
They were a monk, if you're wondering.
Yes, monk sorcerer.
Oh,
Didn't use their abilities properly for either side.
Nope.
no. And we all have theories on why he chose that class.
We're not
It might
gonna
have been
go into
because-
that detail.
Okay, fine.
Well,
We're trying-
I mean, to be fair, that would go along with the problem character stuff.
Yeah, you know what? You're
Yeah.
right. I stand corrected. So the theory, and I think this is the best one, is at the same time, Apollo here was also a first-time 5th edition player without Genesis experience. And he picked Monk because he was like, this is interesting. I want to try it. You say it's user-friendly. And I'm like, yeah, it is. I work with him on his story, work with him on his character. He gives me kind of what he wants to do. I throw back what subclass that would be, and we make Throngelon, the Loxodon monk, who was Kensei, weapon master. B sees this. He also saw, I believe it was actually you, Eos, with your powerful magic iron.
Yes. Yeah,
And
Eos
he's-
being the artificer.
Yeah,
had some pretty
And
powerful-
he took those two amazing classes these two great players were doing, and he's like, I'm a sorcerer monk. He didn't read anything about his characters. Zero.
No.
Zip. Nada. As he did not know what key points were, and he did not know what sorcery points were.
which are the two main mechanics of these classes.
Yes. He, and I quote, picked these. And we say it's a theory. I know this to be true because you guys did amazing with your characters, and he just wanted a cool OP character.
But you don't get an OP character unless you work on it.
Yes.
Yeah, you can make an OP character fairly easily.
You have to understand the system.
You have to
And
know the
like
system.
we say, he's not good at math.
Or reading.
Like, here's a great example. At one point I asked, B, how much damage did you do? 18. I'm like, okay, what did you roll on the die? 18. I'm like, you had a D12. How did you get 18? He's like, I rolled 18. What did you roll on the die? 18. I'm like,
What
God.
fucking math equations did you use?
Like, and at one point I'm like, what is on your dice face? He's like, oh, I think he said it was like a 9. And I was like, okay, so it would be 15. He's like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, 15 plus your damage modifier is this. You got a damage bonus from your fighting style. Puts it at 15. He's like, but wait. I like, you don't add your proficiency to damage, is what he was doing.
Which is even funnier when we were using D&D Beyond, which
Which
does
D&D
it
Beyond-
for you.
Yes.
It takes away the math part.
You just press button and it do. You don't
Yes.
have to think.
You push button, machine do complicated thing. for you.
Machine go burr.
Yes,
Yes.
machine go burr and
Machine go
spit out
brrr.
number. It goes,
So,
here's the
yes.
number.
But, the big thing. We need to talk about this one. Do you want to go ahead? Who wants to take this one?
Okay, you know what? Since it was supposed to be my character's show, I guess I'll discuss this story.
Go for it.
To the south of Eos's kingdom, there was a rival nation. They were once at one point in their history, conquered by another, and then after they split off from that one, they disagreed with how they wanted to rule their new nation. You know, typical stuff. They hated each other because of this.
They were basically rival brother nations. They saw each other as the same nationality or culture, but they had different views on how to be ruled.
Yeah.
Basically, think like North and South.
I wouldn't say that far.
One was known as the Empire, the other was a trade republic. Very, very drastically different. One cared about nobility and feudalism, while the other cared about money, tradition, and rising to power, where even a lowly peasant could become powerful if they knew what they were doing.
In general, most of their stuff was very similar with how they did things, except for how they were ruled for the most part.
Yes.
That was the main difference, and that's what caused all the issues. The thing is, we were trying to make allies with them because bad things were happening in the world, and we were trying to fix it. And with them as an ally, it made everything easier.
Especially since a war was about to break out between them.
Yeah, no, we were trying to
prevent war,
unite
and
all
if
the nations that
possible,
we can.
make a. It was trying to prevent a war, and if possible, gain allies. That was the end goal.
Yeah, at the very least, we just wanted to make them not enemies. We succeeded.
Yes.
However, before we succeeded, we had to go to each of the major nobles that kind of were the ones in charge.
May I take over, as I was the one who designed this nation?
Yeah, you know the exact layout of it better.
Yeah. So this trade republic was based off a traditional trade republic of 5 houses who constantly competed through control through generations. How it basically worked was there was a Grand Duke in charge of these 5 houses who was promoted on a Grand Duke's death. What happened was the current Grand Duke only had one son, and as he was promoted to Grand Duke, his son took over as the house. His son was extremely young. I think I said it was like 8, 13, something like that.
I think it was 8, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 8. Everyone else of the houses had a much more power, money, and influence because this specific house was actually the House of Knights. It was the only military type one.
Yep.
But as traditional goes, once that Grand Duke died, one of the others would take over who had ever had the most influence. So it was basically a constant competition between the houses. The big thing is, when the person takes over as Grand Duke, they lose their position in the house, which is very important in this scenario.
So once they step down, they're not part of that house anymore.
Well, the fun thing is, I don't think we reference this, in traditional, when someone becomes a Grand Duke, they actually cannot step down. It's a position for life.
I know, yeah, but I'm thinking like Pope. Unless something goes wrong and you have to step down for some reason, you're stuck. You're not part of your house. You have no claim to it anymore unless it's like, I'm visiting my family.
Yeah. So there's already that separation there. But continue your story.
Now, we had ways that we can get the different houses as allies. Some of them we bribed. Some of them we just made some backroom deals with.
Others we literally just try to be genuinely nice people.
But the house that we thought we'd have the easiest time with was the house of the Grand Duke. Because the Grand Duke was all for the idea. He just he couldn't be a deciding factor in it. He was essentially just the tiebreaker. So we go to his family's house. We see his son. We find out they're 8 beforehand, and we come up with a plan. I go in as the person in charge of the diplomatic mission.
Yeah, I went along too because
as a backstory thing,
like
mention under the thing that this is the house, the only military knight family in the entire Trade Republic.
They are traditional. Their whole thing is they are always knights. You basically, to become officially the head of the family, you have to be a knight. It was their way of doing things. My character's house was the same way.
Yes.
Which is one of the reasons why we figured this was the easiest way for my character, us to get allies, and why the Grand Duke kind of actually liked my character, because we were similar.
You mind if I add just one little thing to this?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Before this happened, I gave B a magical dagger. A vampiric dagger. That like, because he had no weapons or anything, so like I gave him one out of like respect. Because like, okay, you're a monk, you can use simple weapons. Like here, this should help you. Okay. So never used it, never took it out for a fight or anything. But
Just had
continue.
Yeah.
Yeah, just had it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
he just had it.
just on reference, this dagger, did you go over the specifications of what it did?
It basically drain.
on-
It could drain
yeah.
health.
Yeah,
So
on a
if you
natural
crit.
on natural 20, it crits and it deals necrotic damage, and half that damage is dealt as healing back to the user.
Very powerful.
Yeah, extremely good in good scenarios.
Especially if you roll max damage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even low damage, healing is healing.
Yes,
Yes.
all healing is healing. Now, continue, Iron.
Thrangelon came along as a baron under me who was attached. I was obviously the one in charge of the diplomatic mission from our emperor, as I was given command of this. And I figured, well, out of character, I knew, hey, this character is a sorcerer. These characters a sorcerer. They're going to be pretty helpful when it comes to like persuading people. In character, I realized, they've been able to talk their way through a lot of stuff that they shouldn't have been able to.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think saying no is he actually wants to join you. Like in character, he talks like he wants to join you because he says he has a plan.
Yeah, then we found out, oh, they have a plan. Oh, perfect. I kind of wanted you along because, again, this is perfect. Great.
We all are thinking this is the time he proves his character's worth. This is
Yes.
the moment.
Yeah, we were excited. Ecstatic, actually.
Much like with C's example of him proving himself to be useful.
Yeah.
And then completely and
Setting it on
utterly-
fire.
He shit the bed, to put it mildly.
Basically.
Oh, absolutely.
Continue though, Iron.
We go in, we see the child. He's basically using a wooden practice sword to hit one of his guards. Because he was too young to officially start his training, but he knew he was going to in the future and was excited.
Be advised, this is like little kid we're talking about.
8. This is 8.
Yeah, this is an 8-year-old kid, mind you, who was basically at the age where pretty soon he was going to start his training, probably within the next few months.
And to be honest, in those types of societies, it's not uncommon for them to unofficially start their training like
Yeah.
a year before.
That practice sword was given to him to get him used to the idea of holding a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So he was starting his training soon. We decided, okay, let's let B take the lead, as they are the ones who has a plan. B's plan is to give them
A gift. A very
gift.
special gift.
To sway them to our side, because the kid's young, they don't really understand why a war would be awful and it should not happen.
Mm-hmm.
The gift is the vampiric dagger.
Now,
They think it's cool.
I'm going to take control here for a minute.
I shall be right back. Continue talking though.
Mm-hmm. So, I take over the scene as they are given a dagger. The rest of the party looks in horror at giving an 8-year-old a magical dagger. Now, everyone other than the diplomats here, well, the diplomats, the party doesn't really have power. The maids, the knights, technically everyone outranks this child. So the child is the highest rank here, so no one can argue against him. The child, being so excited to handle a weapon and finally go to his calling as a knight, begins to practice on the guard with the dagger and rolls a crit. I roll to hit and I get a natural 20. So I describe the scene as this child, for the first time drawing blood, stabs the dagger into the knight's artery of his leg, bursting with blood all over the child's face and arm. The knight falls to the ground holding it, bleeding out in agony as I dealt almost 20 fucking damage.
Yeah.
This is a simple guard. Stats-wise, this is a normal guard. He is bleeding out of his leg in proportional pain. The maids are coming over, trying to stop the bleeding. The child is sitting there in psychological shock as an 8-year-old with a dagger just stabbed the dude's artery in his leg. He is covered in blood.
Luckily, I had the Amulet of the Drunkard, and I took it off, put it on the guard, and forced the alcohol down his throat.
Yes. At this moment, the
Telling
head
him this will
maid,
heal you.
seeing all this fucking chaos, look at your group and says, "Get the fuck out!" Does not care if you're diplomats at this point, as you have just caused a major fucking problem.
We then, after we leave and we're walking back, we turn to look at B and ask, "What the fuck was your plan?" He then responds with a very famous phrase, "I didn't have a plan."
I
After
didn't
they
have a
spent
plan.
the last hour and a half talking about how they had a brilliant plan to ensure that the diplomacy went through. My character
Like-
later on had to do a lot of checks to get that kid to want to become a knight again and get the Grand Duke not to hate us
Yeah.
anymore.
Oh yeah, no,
I
the
helped.
Grand Duke after this was like, "Fuck you all, get the fuck out." This old man was done with the bullshit.
Yeah.
They saved it through very, very many checks, and because of this, it really hurt them.
It did.
Yeah.
We almost didn't manage to do this.
Because of this one scene. Also, they came back the next day to try to make things better with the child, to find out his father had moved him to their countryside manor to let him readjust himself, as the kid is now having mental trauma. And continued, I'll say it as a GM, this kid never got over the mental trauma. This was a permanent fucking psychological scar. Now, I don't think we have any other problem players. Not like these guys.
Yeah. But we
These-
should talk about how you deal with people like that.
Yes.
Because we talked about them themselves. We didn't really talk
Yeah.
about how you deal with this.
Now, this is how I deal with it as a GM. I put up with a lot of problem players for the longest time. First, talk to them. Let them know they are being a problem. If the party is starting to hate them, like, don't let it get to the point where out of session, out of game, that others are starting to throw shade at each other. Don't let them actually start fighting out of character. Set them down before this happens. You need to talk to that problem player, and if it actually is a problem with them and not the entire party hating on them, you need to talk to them about it and be like, this cannot keep happening. Why are you doing it like this? Can we try to adjust? Can you try to change the way you're doing this? And if they say yes, but then continue to do the problem, you need to kick them. I'm just straight up, you cannot have them in your party if they continue to be problems.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they're your best friend, even if they're your bloody brother for your entire life, they're going to cause so many rifts, make your friends hate each other, cause so many fights, make others not want to talk to them, not want to talk to you. It's a problem. And that's why they're called problem players.
Yeah,
Do you guys have other solutions?
Oh, I
The-
have another story, but
The big thing is to know when to draw the line.
Mhm.
yeah.
Because there are things where it's like, okay, sometimes a player wants to do something because they think it would be funny,
Mhm.
and it goes wrong. That's not necessarily the player being that guy. That's just they tried to do something funny and it goes wrong, and it ended up not being as
Or
funny as they
maybe
thought.
they're still new and they're just not used to it. Maybe they're still trying to adjust. Maybe they just
Yeah.
need to have their hand held and guided the right way.
Their old group wasn't quite like this.
Yeah, maybe they were
Everyone
war
was doing
gamers
this.
and now they're coming into a narrative game.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to cut some slack, but you got to know when there's cutting slack and just not doing anything about the problem. It's a tough balance to really get, Because no one wants to be the guy who says, "Okay, you're out." No one
Mhm.
wants to. At some point, you have to.
This is my note also. As the DM, I've been a DM for God knows how many years now. Way
Yeah.
too long. Way too fucking long.
Yeah.
I also think I have one of the most experience in tabletop games here in the group.
Definitely.
It is the DM's responsibility. It is not the group's. It is not the problem players. It is your responsibility as a GM or DM to make sure these issues do not happen. I am going to say one final story as my fuck up as the DM, which I should have caught. H. Everyone remember H, the girl?
Very vaguely.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
H was a girl I was talking to at the time. I wouldn't say it was like serious talking, if that. It was just more getting there kind of thing.
Hmm.
And they were actually interested in D&D, and I let them join. H had a fucking drinking problem. Oh god, did they have a drinking problem. To the point where they only did 3 sessions with us.
About that, yeah.
I think
But
so. Yeah.
But basically, I let them join. I helped them get started because I wanted more players because I'm a nice GM. I want all my players to be happy. Well, H joins. First night was a problem. Very first night was a problem because she got into fights with all my other fucking players. Every single one of you. She hated on, wanted to do things her ways, got angry at the party for not letting her speak even though she was talking for an hour straight.
Yeah.
The next session, she comes in fucking wasted. Hour late, drunk, unable to speak English. Like, unable to even talk. And an hour in, so we're 2 hours into session, hour into being with the group, fucking just leaves straight out and starts angrily texting me like, no one's my friend, no one's fucking wanting to talk to me, no one's listening to me, because they're so fucking wasted and drunk that they think everyone's against them when they're trying to solve a fucking puzzle.
Yeah.
They're just trying to solve a puzzle and they're all confuckled when it was really easy.
To be fair, that's just the curse of being a fucking
Yes.
RPG
But
tabletop player.
at this point, you guys were fucking done. You're like, kick her out. She's a problem. And as the DM and talking to this girl, I was like, give her one more attempt. Third attempt just straight out fails. That's my bad. I should have listened to the group. When your players, as the DM, come to you and say, I'm not having fun, this person is causing problems, this needs to be addressed, do not push it off. Everyone needs to have an equal share of opinion. Do not be biased. You cannot be biased as a game master.
No.
Mhm.
And
That's one of the hardest things I think to get.
yes,
That you have to. You
Try
are
to
their friend.
compromise, but-
You are also the one in charge of the game.
yes. I'm going to reference Critical Role here because I think there's a perfect scene. I think it was like campaign 2 where they were doing a fight and the players had actually fucked up and got into a serious fight. The GM Matt Mercer there actually was like, "I were you," and then he had to stop himself from talking. Hang on, I actually have a microphone issue here. Test 1 2.
Anyway, while we're talking, I'm also playing a game, and I killed Newt.
All
Just played Risk of
right, sorry,
Rain.
my headphones
That's
just died
not
there in my
something
microphone.
you're really supposed to do.
Sorry, did I interrupt you?
No,
No.
I killed Newt.
Oh, nice. But going on that subject, he like had to stop himself. He was like, "If I were you guys, I would." And then one of the player goes, "What was that? Wait, what was that?" And someone's like, "That's him actually caring for us as friends." As a DM, when you pick up that DM screen, when you put that in between you and your players, no matter what it is, whether it's a monitor, an actual DM screen, or just some piece of paper, you have to stop being their friends. You are the dungeon master. That is all you are. You are there to have a good time with your friends, yes. And you can still do that as their friend.
Have a good time, kill them. Yes.
Kill them if that's the way you want to play your game, or if they go down, they go up in jail or whatever. But you have to be that neutral, omnipotent person there, your word is final as DM. Because that's what it is. Your word is always the final law. Someone wants to do something, and everyone's like, yeah, that's cool. One player goes like, actually, no, that can't actually happen, yada yada. And everyone starts fighting. You as a DM have to step down. So rule of cool applies, it happens, or he's right, the rules aren't allowing it, it's not happening. Either it's not there's no correct answer. You have to be the final decision maker, though.
Sometimes you kind of have to be the asshole.
Yes.
Yep.
And I think that's a perfect note on ending this. Sometimes you have to be an asshole.
But if you're going to be the asshole, you got to be consistent about it. Don't be the asshole to one player, then not be the asshole to another player.
Yes.
You got to be the asshole to everybody equally.
Be an asshole equally. That's the end.
Nobody likes an inconsistent asshole.
Is there anything anyone else would like to add?
Bringing problems out of session, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Problems out of session or out of session.
Yeah.
Don't bring them into it.
Yeah. Someone fucking cheated. Your girl cheated on you with one of the other players. Don't fucking bring that shit to game. Even if you hate them and you don't want to see them, don't want to talk to them, then drop the campaign as that player. Don't force your way in there and still hate on that guy and be like, kick him. That's not right.
No. Do that, you're just an asshole.
Yeah.
Don't be an asshole. Unless you're
the DM.
You have to be the asshole.
That's the end note. If you're a player, don't be an asshole. If you're the DM, you have to be an asshole. Just be an asshole equally. It's been great talking to you all. See you on the next Talk.
All right.